Spider-Man is awesome. In December of 2023, I released a double retrospective covering 1994's Maximum Carnage and the 1995 sequel, Separation Anxiety. Do you remember the opening line of that video? Spider-Man is awesome. What's funny is that I did not repeat this opening line on purpose. I sat down, I wrote this, and it felt familiar, so I went back to check, and yeah, there it was. This sort of repetition could mean one of two things. Either A, I'm a bad writer, or B, Spider-Man is genuinely awesome. For the sake of my feelings, let's go with B. Those 16-bit brawlers from the prior retrospective hold their place in history. They've webbed themselves permanently into our hearts and minds, right? Today, we fast forward a bit. Across the 5-year span of 2002 to 2007, a trilogy of live-action Spider-Man movies lit up the big screen. With Sam Raimi in the director's chair, Tobey Maguire under the mask, and a deluge of dastardly delinquents played by the likes of Willem Dafoe, Alfred Molina, Topher Grace, and more, these films changed our hero forever. And I mean, grossing a combined $2.5 billion at the box office will do that. But we're not looking at the movies here today, though I really would love to do that eventually. Would you guys like to watch a retrospective on the Spider-Man movies? Let me know. Now, today we focus on the trilogy of video games that accompanied those films. How were these received at the time, and how do they hold up today? I'll answer those questions and many, many more. With great power comes great responsibility. And with the 616 Entertainment Retrospective comes a thank you to all of my supporters over on Patreon and right here under YouTube channel memberships. Every video here on 616 Entertainment is made possible by my supporters over on Patreon. If you enjoyed the show here today, consider signing up. You'll get early access, exclusive videos and podcasts, and more. Pro Wrestling Tees has the merch. As always, thank you for watching. Today's titles are licensed games. They were made to coincide with the release of the movies, meaning they released right around the same time as their theatrical counterparts. Spider-Man released in 2002, Spider-Man 2 in 2004, and Spider-Man 3 in 2007. This third and final installment did indeed receive a next-generation release, but for the sake of me telling my story and sharing my personal experiences, we're gonna stick with the PlayStation 2 versions. You understand, right? Now, video games don't just fall out of the sky. There's no video game button. I wish there were, because it has been 18 years since we've gotten a Superman video game. Seriously, 18 years. You think I wouldn't press the video game button to rectify that? But let's stay on track. Where did the Spider-Man trilogy come from? They came from Treyarch, a subsidiary of Activision, who, in the late 90s, began working side by side with Neversoft, porting the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater games from PlayStation to other platforms. Treyarch would do the same for Neversoft's Spider-Man title, bringing it over to the Sega Dreamcast system. Depressingly, Treyarch have been working exclusively on Call of Duty games since 2018. That's the Activision way, right? Take extremely talented teams like Toys for Bob, who breathed brand new life into both Spyro the Dragon and Crash Bandicoot, and completely stripped them of their identity, transforming them into a Call of Duty support studio. I should mention that even Toys for Bob said fuck this and have since split off to do their own thing. Good for them. Anyway, good God, I'm trying so hard not to get sidetracked. Treyarch are the artists of the hour here today. Man, it had to feel pretty damn good to go from developing port after port to being handed the keys to the Spider-Man kingdom, right? I mean, the creative director on Spider-Man, Chris Suarez, had only one main design credit to his name prior to this, that being scenario lead on 1998's Die by the Sword. Man, I've never heard of this before, but this actually looks kind of awesome. We've all seen the Spider-Man movies, right? Right? I know you've seen them. I'm gonna pretend you said yes. Because if you didn't say yes, I have no idea what to say to you. How? How have you never seen the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy? What'd you do with your life? Anyway, let's go with the fact that you have seen them many, many times. You might be wondering how the story of this first game follows the story of the first movie, and that's a question I can answer in detail. Let's take a look at the story, and let's take a look at the gameplay. This is a licensed game at the end of the day, so obviously we're going to be tied into another product. But not all licensed video games are one-to-one copies. Toy Story 2, Buzz Lightyear to the Rescue was an awesome PS1 game, which is obviously tied into the movie. But there's a ton going on here that has nothing to do with the movie. Man, I love this game. Side story, I broke my leg when I was like 10 while wrestling with my brother. I had a cast from my hip all the way down to my toes, and I was stuck in a wheelchair. I was home from school, I was in my room playing this game, and the phone rang. I tried to answer it, and my wheelchair got stuck in the hallway, and I was totally lodged between the door frame and the wall. I had to sit there for like 20 minutes waiting for someone to get home to help me. What an idiot. But okay, Spider-Man. How close are we sticking to the movie? Do we see the mugger who killed Uncle Ben fall out the window to his death? Yes, we do. Though, in the game, it's actually the criminal's fault 100%. The movie kind of paints Peter as backing him down through the wall. Interesting. Let's jump to the end. What the hell? Does the Green Goblin get killed by his own glider? Yes, he does. Though he's not impaled through the dick and balls this time. He's actually just hit so hard that we must assume his bones and organs are completely obliterated. We begin and end in the same place as the movie, so we're mostly on track. Though the movie didn't have Peter and MJ kissing over the fresh corpse of Norman Osborn. There's a time and a place, guys. So where do we stray from the path? Well, for one, the Green Goblin is not the only villain in the game. Shocker's here trying to rob banks and raise all kinds of hell in a daring sewer escape. He's a pain in the ass. God, I've always loved this look for Shocker. Vulture's a freak, and chasing him through his bell tower deal as it explodes and burns to the ground is awesome. Except for this. I don't know what the hell's going on here. I actually stood there and looked at this thing for a while like, that thing's just doing its thing. Beating Vulture's old freaky ass on the edge of a skyscraper? Hey, he had it coming. I'm not trying to give you a full play-by-play of the story. Just watch the movie. I mean, you've already seen the movie, right? Right? We've seen the villains, we dove into the story, now let's dig into the nitty-gritty of the gameplay. And I mean, it is pretty gritty. Pretty gritty, I like that. That could be a band or a short film. Without doing my usual carrying on for 10 minutes before making my point, I'm gonna open with it. I'm pretty sure that of all the games I played as a kid and have come back to as an adult to do a retrospective on, this one has aged the worst from a control standpoint. Oh my god, I was fighting the fucking camera more often than I was fighting bad guys. This isn't like God of War where we've got fixed camera angles, nor is it like Grand Theft Auto where the right stick gives us full control of the camera. Spider-Man pulls this shit where the right stick can pan the camera left or right, but man, is this hard to explain. Moving the camera doesn't speak to the direction of traversal. In a good game, in a much better designed game, adjusting the position of the camera reacts one-to-one with your character. Here in Spider-Man, I have so much footage of me accidentally climbing on walls, running in the wrong direction, reaching a peak and then climbing right back down because the camera moved and the game hadn't registered the adjustment in time. It's a nightmare. Everything is extremely delayed and sometimes shit just doesn't work. Take this situation for example. When the reticle turns green, launching my web will strike the enemy. Except, at least like 50% of the time, it doesn't. It just does not do what it's supposed to do. The final battle against Green Goblin. I'm throwing strike after strike, and they're touching him, but these hits are not registering or doing any damage to him at all. This is unacceptable, man. The Shocker fight in the sewer where you have to dodge his blasts coming down the tunnels. These controls are not nearly tight enough to request this sort of fast twitch skill from the player. This is the sort of shit that makes you go, you know what? Fuck this game. And you turn off the PS2. You know you're not having fun when your health gets low and your frustration isn't about the enemy one-upping you, but because you really don't want to have to do this level again. And you will have to do the entire level again, by the way. There are practically 0 checkpoints across this entire game. Now that's a lot of complaining, but that's the way it goes. Look, I had this game when I was younger. It was a PC copy for some reason. I don't know where I got it from. I think it was a gift. And I did my best to have fun with it. Because that's what you do with gifts, you know? You do your best. You appreciate it. I did eventually get the PlayStation 2 version, and at the time, I had a lot of fun with it. Now, was I disappointed that we couldn't go down to the city streets and interact with the people down there? Sure I was, but I don't want to focus on the negative anymore. Let's switch gears. Let's take a look at some of the highlights. Willem Dafoe and Tobey Maguire reprised their big screen roles as Green Goblin and Spider-Man, which lends a ridiculous amount to this game's authenticity. Some of the trash talk here from Spidey is so funny.
You're crazier than a soup sandwich.
Mess with a skull.
Big words, creep.
Who's that?
Back off, ugly.
Another familiar voice can be heard here in the game's tutorials, those being the dulcet tones of one Bruce Campbell.
You are the little red dot, and your target is blue, so now's your chance to self-test for color blindness. Web swing over to your next objective. Use your compass and height meter to find it. If you can't find it, I can't help you. Unplug the machine and walk away.
We were still in the age of silly unlockables and cheats here in 2002, and being able to play as Mary Jane and Shocker, amongst others, is fun as hell. Look at this, swinging around as Mary Jane. You kidding me? This outfit here is called Matrix Spider-Man, and it's weird as hell. This is like the Spider-Man equivalent of what Tim Burton was doing with Superman in his canceled Superman Lives movie, right? I do find the unlockable pinhead bowling minigame fun, but that might just be because I like bowling. Man, I haven't gone bowling in a while. My 2 local places are gone. Orland Bowl was turned into a fucking Tesla dealership, and Oak Forest Bowl burnt to the ground. God damn it. You know what else chaps my ass? I'm sorry, I know we're in the highlights section, but how you gonna have Bonesaw in the game, and it's not even fucking Randy Savage?
Oh, yeah, this is the Macho Man Randy Savage, a.k.a. Bonesaw McGraw.
Are you kidding me? Who is this jabroni Jabinski? No way, man. I'm done. I'm out. Spider-Man released on April 16th, 2002. That's about 2 weeks before the release of the movie. The reviews were largely positive, with many critics calling this the best Spider-Man video game ever made. I wouldn't go that far. Even at the time, I was still partial to Neversoft's Spidey game from a few years prior. And looking back now, more than 20 years later, I stand firm in that assessment. But hey, with over 3 million copies sold, obviously Treyarch were on the right path. 2 years later, in 2004, the movie would receive a sequel. As you might have guessed, its video game tag team partner was right by its side. Look, I'm doing my best to not belabor everything I say. I know I'm long-winded and verbose. I'm working on it. Spider-Man 2, the film, released in 2004. It was then and is today one of the absolute greatest comic book movies ever made. Spider-Man 2 is in elite company. I'm serious. Everybody has their own taste. Some love the Tim Burton vision for Batman, others don't. Some live their entire lives like a robot where they've been programmed that praising Zack Snyder is more important than food or water. Everyone's opinion belongs to them, you know? But I would just like to say, if you're not in the Spider-Man 2 camp, if you don't recognize the artistic achievement that is this film, we are not the same. We're not buddies. We ain't family. Capiche? So how does the game carry the torch? That was unbelievably high praise for the movie. The video game adaptation now has insane shoes to fill, right? Let's take a look. Full disclosure, I hadn't touched this one probably since 2005 or 2006. I owned this game when I was a teenager, when it was newish, and I played the shit out of it. But this was one of those games where I just left the memories alone, you know? I never came back until now. Oh my god, am I happy to report that Spider-Man 2 holds the fuck up. Much like the movie, it was awesome back then, and it still is today. The web swinging has been completely revamped. Before, you tapped R2 once, and Spidey would take it from there. It didn't even matter where you were, just pretend your web hooked onto something. Here in the sequel, we launch with R2, we use the stick to guide us in the direction that we want to swing, we can hold X to measure just how hard we want to leap forward on the release, and we launch again. Every single swing is under our complete control, and it's hard to put into words how good this feels. We can even launch 2 separate lines and hang in place. We can play with the physics and bounce back and forth, gaining momentum before leaping in a new direction. I saw a helicopter flying around and I was like, I want to latch onto that prick. It worked! I let this guy carry me around New York for like 2 entire minutes. It was hilarious. But then somebody needed help, so I quit playing around. Oh, how about that springboard? We can help the citizens of New York who are walking around the city streets. That doesn't sound like much in 2024, but 20 years ago, especially coming off the last game, this was massive. 20 years ago. Man, we're getting fucking old, Dan-Dans. The open world design of Spider-Man 2 is said to be largely inspired by that of Grand Theft Auto 3, which I find to be fairly obvious. I mentioned somebody needing help, and they do need help. Constantly. Get ready to nab the lost balloons of like 800 children. Get ready to rescue clumsy construction workers who are hanging from ledges. What was this guy doing up here? Where's the rest of the crew? Where are his tools? I don't know. I like the ones where a car is out of control or stolen, and the way to stop the car is to punch the shit out of it while it speeds down the road. Ridiculous. And speaking of speeding, I hope you enjoy timed pizza delivery minigames. Tell me I'm not the only one who immediately thinks of the Angry Video Game Nerd episode here.
I wish Spider-Man would deliver my pizzas every day.
I'm gonna fucking shove a pizza up your fucking ass.
The map is absolutely huge. Look at this. All of these mission markers and whatnot. This is what open world games still look like to this day. Combat-wise, we've upgraded yet again. Listen to the satisfying, cartoony sounds of these punches.
Yo, not cool.
Thank you, Spider-Man.
Sure thing.
He's already dead.
And this is another thing that I forgot over time because it's been so long since I've played this. But holy shit. This combat feels like the predecessor to the Batman Arkham series. Our spider senses tingle, we tap the dodge button, and we launch into our counter strikes in return. It's the same thing. I made a comment in my 2018 Game of the Year video that I would like to address at this time. Let's roll a clip. I've seen people go out of their way to say this isn't just the Batman Arkham game, but with a Spider-Man coat of paint. I'm sorry, but that's 100% what this is. That's extremely far from being a bad thing, mind you, as the Arkham games are exceptionally good, but let's call a spade a spade. Now, did the Arkham games add a ton of new moves and features and gadgets that Marvel's Spider-Man from 2018 did copy? Yes, 100%. And to say that it did not copy those features would be disingenuous, but I want to take a second to give Spider-Man 2 its flowers for setting this initial table. Here, Here are your flowers. You earned them. Here's a completely separate personal story outside of the game itself. I sold off my PS2 collection around the time that I got a PS3. I know, I fucked up. We all have these sorts of regrets, right? Well, I needed a new copy of Spider-Man 2. I bought one all the way back in 2022 because I've wanted to cover this trilogy for that long. Well, now was the time. I popped in that disc I bought and it looked like this. It took way too long to load. There were no textures on any of the buildings. The assets aren't even loading in on the ground. This disc is shot. This disc was labeled as tested and in very good condition by Jack's Cards 1 on eBay. What a dickhead. It's way too late to leave bad feedback on eBay now, but I will say fuck you here in this video. Look at all this bad feedback he has. Man, I should have looked into his reputation before buying. I ordered a new copy from US_Masta. It works, and we're all good. Shout out to a good seller. I appreciate it. I also appreciate the fact that every single citizen we help, every story mission we complete, we earn hero points. These points are cashed in at the Spider-Man store. I find it so funny that we don't just have a menu of upgrades to purchase. We actually have to walk into a brick and mortar store where people are shopping to buy an upgrade to our web swinging speed or whatever else the hell it is. I wonder what the conversion rate is on hero points to the US dollar. Did hero points become more or less valuable due to inflation? I'd love to know. It's weird to me that Tobey Maguire returns as Spider-Man, Kirsten Dunst is here this time, Alfred Molina lends his voice to Doc Ock, but J.K. Simmons is not here as J. Jonah Jameson, nor is James Franco acting as Harry Osborn. What a bummer. Have you ever wondered what New York looks like from the highest point in the city? Here it is. I think I can see Apartment 9 from here. Shout out to Captain McKay and Mountain Man. Want to know what happens when you jump from this height? Bitch, you thought! How dare you want to see Spider-Man fall? Shame on you. Seriously though, there are some really cool little touches spread around the city. Here on the Chrysler Building, we can find feathers left behind from when we kicked Vulture's ass in the last game. Fantastic. At night, we can see the lights of the 9/11 Memorial at Ground Zero. Beautiful. Now, once again, I don't really feel the need to go through the storyline with you 100% because this is a licensed game. We are pretty much following the story of the movie. But there are avenues where the game does stray from the path, and that we can take a look at. For one, Black Cat is in the game, and that's great. Black Cat is always cool, and she's always hot. I'll never be mad at that. Rhino is another villain who doesn't appear in the film, and we get to kick his ass here in the game. I love timing my dodges while he swings this weapon in a stupid circle. Idiot. Spider-Man 2 is big. Very big. But initially, this game was huge. There are multiple bosses that were cut because Treyarch ran out of development time. The game had to release with the movie, you know? So the plans for Morbius, the Lizard, Shriek, and more, they had to be put on the back burner. Stay tuned for an update on them. Now this could be a completely separate video idea, but there's absolutely a conversation to be had regarding where Spider-Man 2 falls when it comes to the best licensed video games ever made. What do you think? What's the best licensed video game of all time? Let me know in the comments. Look, the world is fun, the boss fights are great, the game makes you feel like you are playing out the movie, and I don't know what else we could possibly ask for. June 29th, 2004 was when Spider-Man 2 hit store shelves. The reviews? Ridiculous. Critics once again called this one the best Spider-Man video game ever made, and this time, they were 100% correct for my money. There's a reason Spider-Man 2 is so fondly remembered and so well regarded. It's because this game is great. Really and truly great. There's a bit of a learning curve and you'll have to get used to the dated tech, but I'm serious. If you have a PS2, this one will still hit for you. I guarantee it. I said that Spider-Man 1 was probably the worst aged game I've ever come back to for one of these retrospectives. Spider-Man 2 is right up there for the best of my revisitations though, which I could not be happier about.
Whoa.
Spider-Man 2, without a shadow of a doubt, is one of the greatest comic book movies ever made. 3 years later, in 2007, we would get the final installment of the Sam Raimi, Tobey Maguire trilogy. Spider-Man 3 is not remembered in the same way as Spider-Man 2. Not even close. In fact, some would say it is quite the opposite. Now, I'm not going to dive too deeply into the film because we are here to talk about the games, but I will say, when it comes to Spider-Man 3, I love this movie. I love this movie to the ends of the earth. I saw it twice in theaters when it first came out. Now, is Spider-Man 3 as good as the other two? Absolutely not. I'm not delusional. This movie is silly. At times, it's downright stupid. There's too much going on. It's overfull. None of the villains get enough time to properly develop. Venom is portrayed poorly. But is this movie as bad as people say it is? No. Not even close at all. Spider-Man 3 is so much fun, and if it has been a while since you've watched this movie, just sit down and take it in. I guarantee you're gonna laugh, you're gonna point at the screen when certain things happen. Spider-Man 3 is fun. The movie, that is. The movie. So the movie is better than people say it is, in my opinion. The video game is not. Spider-Man 3, and we're gonna jump to what I usually close with right now, it reviewed like shit. Well, the version that I'm looking at, the PlayStation 2 version, reviewed like shit. And look at it. It looks like shit. What happened here? How could we possibly have taken such a turn for the worse? Well, the quick and easy answer seems to be that Treyarch were not responsible for the last-gen version of Spider-Man 3. They were the architects of the 360 and PS3 version, which reviewed much more respectively. But the last-gen iteration was handed off to Vicarious Visions, who had been tasked with developing the handheld versions of the Spider-Man games. Spider-Man 2's PSP port was basically Spider-Man 1, with no city traversal at a street level, which many found very disappointing. And that was disappointment that, unfortunately, would continue on into this third entry, even on home consoles. God damn it, look at this!
The biggest gamble these nitwits made is thinking they can actually get away from me.
I need pictures for tomorrow's front page.
The game runs like dog shit. It's awful almost all of the time. Sometimes when Spider-Man is alone on screen and in an enclosed area, the frame rate finally reaches the heights of Spider-Man 2. But if there's literally anything else going on, the game chugs. This fucker struggles. Here, the police are fighting somebody who doesn't exist. I stood here for a while waiting to see what was going to happen, and they just kept on going. What is this bullshit? So there, it's not good. And it would be one thing to say that it's not good compared to the next-gen version, but this game isn't even good compared to the prior installment in this series on this platform. This is more than a step back. This is a whole web swing back. But I don't want to complain for the rest of this video, so we are going to dial it in on some key features and highlights, as few and far between as they may be. What was the main selling point of Spider-Man 3? Well, the black suit. The symbiote, as it's called. Is it here in the game? Yes, it is. And it's actually really cool to put into play. With the tap of a button, we can let the symbiote take over. Our strikes are stronger and our health bar grows. It really feels good. The black suit is the I can kick your ass button. I also think it's cool that there's a limit to what you can do with the black suit. The more ass you kick under the influence of the symbiote, the stronger its influence grows. The screen gets darker and shakes, and if you don't take this thing off quick, you're gonna die. As the game goes on, the more you use the suit, the harder it becomes to take off. This is good stuff. It's a shame that this awesome mechanic is caught in such a shitty game. Remember the joke about having to shop at the Spider-Man store for upgrades in the last game? The store is out, and now we've got a standard skill tree. We're once again unlocking the same types of moves and attacks. It's just in a different menu now. Neat. Fighting Morbius and trapping him in our webs to be burned by the sunlight is cool, and hey, the lizard is here too. Remember when I mentioned they were intended for Spider-Man 2, but the devs ran out of time? Well, these bad boys were dusted off and inserted into the sequel. So was Shriek, and I mean, we can all admit that she's looking good as hell, right? Zooey mama. That's about all I got as far as highlights go. Look, this game was a massive disappointment. Going from the Spider-Man 2 game to this is like going from Friday the 13th Part 4 to Friday the 13th Part 5. And you can learn all about that on the history of Friday the 13th. How you doing? It's funny that James Franco is now present to play Harry Osborn, and J.K. Simmons has arrived for J. Jonah Jameson, but we lost Kirsten Dunst! Why was it seemingly impossible to get the entire group together? I'll look into this. Does anyone have Kirsten Dunst's phone number? She can probably tell me. It sucks that even the combat has largely fallen apart. Remember the satisfying sounds of the punches from Spider-Man 2?
I'm gonna be the guy who got Spider-Man!
Listen to the action here in the sequel.
I don't care if you have a different suit for every day of the week. Still won't stop.
It's just not the same. Traveling through the sewer to track down the lizard is kind of cool. I like the idea, but again, it just doesn't feel good to play through these ideas. The lizard boss fight. Look at the size of this ham hock. Look, we make do with things at a certain age, right? We try our best to have fun with whatever we have, whether it's the best thing in the world or the worst. That's part of being young, I think. At least, it was for me. It's similar to when my buddy Bathroom Money Tim Ewers brought over Fight Night Round 3 on his brand new, shiny Xbox 360. I loved it. It was the coolest thing in the world. But I didn't have a next generation console. I still had a PlayStation 2. So I made do with the PS2 version of Fight Night. And you know what? It was fun. Now, Tim also had Spider-Man 3 on the Xbox 360, and I remember talking to him about it as we both played through. He told me he was frustrated with the Kingpin boss fight, and I was like, Kingpin? What do you mean? I was unaware at the time that the next-gen version of Spider-Man 3 was practically a completely different game. It didn't just look better. It didn't just play better. There were entire levels and boss fights and storylines here that were completely absent from my dinky little PS2 version. Treyarch did what they could here, but even the next-gen version, according to this gameplay I sourced from a channel called Benedict, it looks like it runs very poorly. And what a shame that is. Man, I guess this third iteration was just cursed. Spider-Man video games are abundant. The web swinger has appeared on damn near every console known to man, and that's because he's awesome. Whether or not his video games live up to his legacy is judged on a case-by-case basis, obviously. This trilogy of PlayStation 2 titles that we've looked at today, they fall all over the rating scale. There's no doubt that Spider-Man 2 is the best of the bunch, and I would even take Spider-Man 3 over the original just because there's more variety and cooler boss fights. But yeah, we're all over the place here. None of these games carry a particularly high value, and that's great. It means that if you are interested in reliving your memories with these games, or you'd like to experience them for the first time, they're all affordable. And yes, I'm aware that they're available on more than just the PlayStation 2. I'm just telling my story. You know what I mean. This was fun. I enjoyed revisiting my friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and I hope you enjoyed watching. Oh, there it is, Dan Dans. That's my retrospective on the Spider-Man PlayStation 2 trilogy. Now, you can gain exclusive access to shows like Let's Play Friday, GM Showdown, or Monday Night Blitz 3 by signing up over on Patreon or right here under a channel membership. It's up to you. Whether you sign up for anything or not is your prerogative. I greatly appreciate you either way. Thanks for giving me the time today, and I hope you had some fun watching. Until next time, I love ya, and I'll see you soon.